My name's Heather Pinson. I'm an administrator with the cottages, and today we are here with our friends to show the proper techniques of transferring with our residents. This is my friend Garrett. He's with Encompass, and he's going to show us some proper techniques.
My name is Garrett Weldon. I'm a doctorate of physical therapy, studied at the University of Utah, and we're here today to talk about transferring. To start out with, I want to talk about one of the things you should be using all the time when you're transferring your residents. It's called a gait belt. I'm going to show you two different kinds. One kind is a buckling format, and the other kind is a metal buckle. So here at the cottages, this is the gait belt that every resident should have. It's simple, it just puts together, and then you're able to tighten it, and that's your gait belt. It should go around each resident at their waist, if at all possible. And then it should be snug down to when they're standing up, you only get about 2 fingers in between their stomach and the gait belt. If there are those residents where they have a large middle section, you can bring it up higher and buckle it here. This is not the preferred method, but it is a method that can work for those residents where putting it around their waist is just unreasonable or inappropriate due to the size of them. If it is up here or down here, please be aware of your female residents to make sure that their breasts are removed out of the gait belt so that you are not pinching them, as that can cause pain and discomfort. So again, this is gait belt number 1, a buckling format. Gait belt number 2, it's a metal buckle, and you'll see that it has teeth on one side, a movable buckle, and then the other half of the buckle. If this is being used, the teeth need to be faced out. Again, the teeth need to be faced out. And when you wrap it around, you will go through it. So the teeth are again facing out so it bites. And then you're putting it through. At which point, you can tighten it down to get that 2 finger width between the stomach and the gait belt. You'll see on some of these gait belts that when the teeth are out, the tag is also facing out. That's okay. Don't look so much at the tag or the seam. Be more aware of where the teeth are positioned, and the teeth need to be out. Next, we're going to look at a transfer starting when your resident is lying on their back to sitting. So important things to remember when they're lying on their back is we do have the gait belt on, and that should be placed on either when they're lying on their back or once they are in a seated position. For our example here, the gait belt is already on. So what we are going to have to do is have the resident bring her legs to a bending position, and I'm going to show you at 2 different times with 2 different levels of assist or levels of help. The first one, I'm going to be helping a little bit more. Okay, the first one I'm going to help more. The second example, I'm going to help a little bit less to give you 2 ideas of how to help somebody from a back position to a seated position. So with the knees in a bent position, their far hand, I'm going to have them reach towards the edge of the bed. And I'm going to be with my right hand at their shoulder blade and my left hand at their knees to help control their hips and to help control their trunk. And then on 3, I'm going to let the resident know where we're going to move to. Again, this is important to always tell them where you are going to move them. Let them know we are going to roll you to your side. Okay? So I'm here at the knees, here at the shoulder blade. We are going to roll you to your side on 3. 1, 2, 3. To their side. At this point, this is when you need to decide how much help they need. Again, the first time I'm going to show you where they need more help. Your hands are going to be coming from the top underneath their legs, and your other hand is going to be right underneath their neck, reaching back to their shoulder blade. And notice how my back is straight. I am not rounded. I've squatted down with my knees to give me a good position. You always want to be as close as you can to the resident you're transferring to provide safety for you as well as for the resident. So again, my hand underneath their knees. On 3, again, I tell the resident where we're going to go. We're going to go to a seated position. I want you pushing up with this hand on 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And as she pushes up, I help assist the knees off the bed, and notice my hand is still on her shoulder. At this point, a lot of residents may experience some dizziness. We want to give them time to make sure they're not dizzy, they're comfortable in their position, And feel free to ask them, are you feeling okay?
Yes.
And get down at their eye level to make sure that their eyes look like they're okay. At that point in time, you can go ahead and take off your hand and set up whatever you need to do the next transfer. To get her back into a lying position on her back, we just do it in reverse. Again, my hands are here, my arm is reaching around to her shoulder blade, at which time this hand's gonna help guide her down. So we're gonna go to your side. Please use this hand to lower yourself down. On 3. 1, 2, 3. And once to the side. Most of the time the residents will be able to help with this. Again, and if you just watch, just by controlling their hips, so I want you just to lay still. If I just lift the legs up, the whole body follows. So if the knees are in a bent position, you can simply help them, make sure they're comfortable. Tell them on 3, we're going to go to your back. Help with those knees. 1, 2, 3, and they're to their back. And then you can help them get situated. That's one where they might need a little more help. If they don't need as much help, you can just tell them, can you please bend your knees up? Good. And with this hand, can you reach to the side of your bed and go ahead and roll to your side? Notice my hands are still in the same position, but I'm not doing as much work. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Good. And then, can you please come to a sitting position? My hand's here to guide if I need to. Go ahead and push up, come to a sitting position. And again, on that back shoulder, if I need to. The same thing, the most important thing to keep the same is that your hand ends on them once they're in a seated position, to make sure, again, that they are safe and that they do not have any dizziness. So we're again in this position of sitting, and this is going to be the position you likely find yourself in a lot. You're going to be helping your residents from the bed, from a couch, from a chair. A lot of different positionings where they're seated and they might need some help. So again, I have the gait belt on, 2 finger width from the gait belt to the stomach, and it's around the waist and secured appropriately. You'll notice when they're on the bed, we've got to be aware of that the beds have springs, so as you get closer to the edge, it actually becomes less and less safe for the resident because they might just slide off. Okay, so I like to have them start seated back. You'll notice that the knees are up against the surface of the bed. And then when I'm ready for the transfer, if they need help, I'm going to bring the device we're transferring to, which is the walker. I'm not going to put it right up close to the bed. I'm going to put it to where they need it once they stand up, which is usually about 1 foot away from the surface. At this point, I'm going to have the resident ask them, with my hand, I'm holding the gait belt behind them, can you slide forward just a little bit? Good. Now before I do this, I just want to review a principle, okay? So when we are standing, kind of our center resides right around our hips. When we move to a sitting position, that center position still is at our hips. And that's what allows us to sit on the bed without sliding off. To stand up, you'll notice we need to move our center forward. We need to move where our weight is, instead of over our hips, over our feet, over our knees, and over our ankles. What allows us to do that is actually moving our chest over our knees. You'll hear the term nose over toes. That's the goal, to get your weight away from your hips and put it over your feet. That's the appropriate position to help somebody be prepared to stand up and to do it safely. Whenever we're helping somebody stand up, we want to give them the best positioning to succeed. So the best position to succeed is actually helping them get their chest over their knees. So at this point, my hand's on the gait belt, I would tell them, can you please lean forward? Good. And really allow them to lean forward. You can even say from here, keep going, keep going. The further they go, you've got them. They're not going to fall off. And they're just going to allow themselves to stand up easier. The next thing that I really want is their hands need to be placed on the surface they're coming from. If that's the bed, if that's the armrest, if that's the couch. It does not go on the device. This is not stable. So with them leaning forward, their arms down, my hand on the gait belt, at this point, again on the count of 3, and I let them know where we're going. We're going to go from sitting to standing, and as you stand, I want you to push with your hands off of the bed and then place them on the walker. 1, 2, 3. Push off the bed, place on the walker. my hand was there at the gait belt in case there was any type of instability or dizziness or loss of balance, that I could pull them nice and close to me to keep the resident safe as well as myself. And then as she stood up, she placed her hands on the walker. Coming back down, we need to remember that needs to happen in reverse. What I do not want to see is that their butt hits the surface without their hands on that surface. So as they're standing, the first thing I ask my residents to do is to reach back with their hands, maybe just one of them, maybe their strong hand, let's say the right hand, back to the surface. So if you can reach your hand back to the surface of the couch, and you'll notice that that forces her to start bending her knees. And then once I've got that position, I like to bring my foot maybe in front of their feet so that if they were to slide out, it just blocks them. Okay, it provides safety for our resident, safety for yourself, so if they do start to slide, you can easily bring them onto the surface. At this point, I say, okay, we are going to go ahead and sit down. As you sit, please bend your knees and reach back with your other hand. 1, 2, 3. And notice that my body also came down with her. I didn't just let her go and I bend. I moved with her. Next, we are going to be talking about wheelchairs and how to manage a wheelchair, also how to help people in and out of a wheelchair. So you'll see a wheelchair often, they come folded up, very similar to this. And it's an easy pulling apart from the armrests, and pushing down at the seat, that will put it into the wheelchair position. A few other things we need to review. If you look right here, this is a brake, and it should fully engage and not allow that wheel to move. If it does still allow the wheel to move, you need to get serviced on your wheelchair, for it will not be a safe base to transfer into. Again, that brake is usually a lever that you push down on to fully engage and pull up on to disengage. Next, as we're looking around, you will see that these are feet rests. Really good to have these when the resident's in the chair. During the getting in and out of a chair, these can cause falls. These can be barriers to success for you as the person helping with the transfer, as well as with the resident. Barriers to their safety. So anytime we're doing a transfer, I like to just completely remove them. There's a quick flip you can push to allow them to disengage, and then you simply pull up and the footrest can come off. Again, I like to completely remove them. It sets us up for success and makes sure that it's safe. It's very important to remove the one on the side that you're going to be transferring to. You can just flip this one around to keep it out of the way, but then it's loose. You never know what's going to happen. It could end up in your line, in your path of how you're transferring. So I just like to pull it off. Pull it off and set it to the side. At that point, your wheelchair is ready to be moved towards the resident to help with the transfer. So we'll get this. We're going to slide it as close as we can to the resident. Now, a lot of times people will make it straight on with the surface that they're going to transfer to, and that actually creates a bigger gap between the wheelchair and the bed or the chair. So if you come at it with a little bit of angle, it creates a smaller gap, and again, it sets you up for success as well as the resident. Once the wheelchair is in place, remember, brakes on. That way, the wheelchair is stable. Again, we have our resident, gait belt is on, tight, so there's about 2 finger width gap between the gait belt and their stomach. At this point, the resident needs to be told what we are going to do. So I would let them know we are going to stand up, move your feet, and then sit down in the wheelchair. We've already reviewed the principle of sitting down and standing up, but just as a remember, it's important to make sure their hand is pushing off of the surface they're coming from, that it's not reaching towards the surface they're going to. So when I set this up, I do not want her hand here and here for this transfer. I want her hand on the bed and on the bed, pushing up. Even though we're going to a wheelchair, we need to keep in remembrance what we learned about helping them stand up. And that is that their chest needs to come over their knees, and over their toes, and that their arms are pushing up from the surface. In this position, we need to realize where our head should be in relation to theirs. So I'm going to bring her back up. And I just want you to pay attention to how her hips move in relation to how her head moves. So if I move her head this way, you'll notice her hips start to lift up on this side. If I move her head this way, her hips start to move on the other side. We always want her hips to be moving up in the direction of the transfer, which means instead of leaning her towards the direction we're transferring, I actually want to lean her head away. And that's going to already create some space at the hips where they're already starting to rise to help us get into proper position. And it also lets you put yourself in the proper position, which is having your head on the side you're transferring to. Again, your head should be on the side you're transferring to, because that means that your resident is in proper position with their hips already starting to rise in the direction that you're transferring to. So once in this position, her hands are down on the bed, my both hands come around on the gait belt, and then I'm going to let her know we are going to stand up. It's 2 moves. We stand, and then at that point we turn, and then at that point we sit down. So not 2 moves, 3 moves. Stand, turn, sit down. 3 moves. The first moving is standing. So I want them to come to a standing position. We reviewed that. Once standing, I'm okay if they put their arms on my shoulders or arms. What I don't like to see is that they wrap around your neck. If they wrap around your neck, you can lose control of the transfer, and it puts you, as well as the resident, at risk of harm or danger. So we'll get to that standing position. Notice I'm a little bit lower because the surface we're transferring from is lower. What I don't want to see is that you're here like this. I would rather you get down like this so your back's flat, you're in a squatted position, and you have a little bit more strength and power. With both hands around the gait belt, she's leaning forward, hands are on the surface we're transferring from. On 3, let's stand. 1, 2, 3. I need to move with the resident. If I stay in a squatted position, I will be out of position. Now I'm in a good position. I'm able to see where we're transferring to. I've got good control. If she were to move, I can bring her in nice and close. Or if I had to, I could help her sit back down at this position. Her head, again, is looking away from where we're transferring. And then comes the second portion of the transfer. And I will ask the resident to turn their feet. I'm turning my feet with them. I'm keeping them close, hands on gait belt. At this point in time, I can see there's a little bit of space between the resident and the wheelchair. So at this time, I'll ask her to scoot back, but be reaching with her right hand towards that armrest until she feels it. Scoot back, go ahead and keep scooting back. Good. At this point, we are now ready to initiate the sitting process. As the one helping with the transfer, I know the brakes are on, but this is a wheelchair, and it has wheels. It has 4 wheels. It means it moves. I like to take my outside foot and just block that inside wheel. That way I know the surface we're going to is stable, it is safe, and it is a setup for success. So again, with me on the gait belt, my foot blocking the wheel, both blocks are on. She's already got one hand on the armrest, which means we're set up for success. I will have her reach back with her other hand to the other armrest, at which time I will have her bend forward, so bringing her chest over her knees and ask her to sit down. Notice I am also going into a squatting position, and it's slow and controlled. If you are finding that your residents flop or feel like you're losing control or fall, at that point in time they might need more help than what we were just demonstrating, and at that point in time you can ask your administrator or your nurse if they would benefit from some outside transfer training or some strengthening to make sure that this process is safe. We learned from research that one of the most important muscles in the body to keep us safe while we're transferring, to make sure that it's strong and has enough mobility to go through these transfers, are these front muscles. So these front muscles are the ones that allow us to bend forward and push. And they are also the ones that allow us to slowly sit down. Without good, strong front muscles, your resident will be at risk for losing control during a transfer. So if you are noticing a little bit more difficult transfers that are happening with the resident, feel free to talk to your administrator or your nurse to see if there is some strengthening or some other training that can be brought in to your community to make sure that your resident is safe when transferring and that you have the proper body mechanics.